Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rise Up. I'm your host, Aaliyah Orozco, and I'm so happy you guys are here today. This episode is sponsored by G Squad Entertainment. They have a fight coming up in October, so if you guys are in the Stockton area, make sure to get your tickets. This is going to be a great one. But you guys, this episode today, this is someone I really look up to that I'm joined with today. This man needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. You guys have probably seen him all over your TV screens if you're a sports fan. He is a two-time welterweight world champion, sports commentator, the one and only Shawn Porter, you guys. Shawn! No, you're not supposed to start with that. Shawn, come on down.
Which camera did they start with?
That one, but I think you're on that one. So how are you today? I like the fit.
Oh, I'm good. Just, being a family man, getting things done, and here I am now.
First, I want to congratulate you on being inducted into the Hall of Fame. How does that
Thank you.
feel?
I left the ring at home, so
Shawn, you got to be wearing that every day now.
it fits a little loose,
Okay.
So we'll get that figured out. But no, it's still a little surreal. When I went up for my acceptance speech, I said I'm probably setting a record for being the youngest person ever inducted into a Hall of Fame, 36 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I really did, man. I did a lot as an amateur and as a pro. 13 years as an amateur, 13 years as a pro, and, a couple of world championships later. And as everybody likes to say, fought everybody that you could fight.
Yeah.
And that was it for me.
Did you think that it was going to take longer for you to go in the Hall of Fame? Or were you kind of shocked when you got the call? Is it a call, or how do you find out?
Yeah, it was like social media, and the text messages were coming like simultaneously, and the calls were coming simultaneously. That part was fun, just to see it like show up. But when I did the math, I'm like, I haven't even been retired for 3 years. How do I get into the Hall of Fame already? And one of the qualifications for Nevada is you just need to be retired for 2 years. So
I didn't know that.
That's cool. I mean, there's other qualifications you have to have fought in the state of Nevada. It doesn't have to be Las Vegas. A couple other things as well. So I think it's a number of rounds. So I mean, all in all, I'm just still kind of like wide-eyed about it.
Did you ever see this like coming for your life when you were growing up?
No, I didn't. I was just doing what I felt I needed to do first, for funds, and then it turned into doing what I needed to do for, the bigger cause of becoming a world champion. And everything that you see me do now outside of the ring, all of that effort was geared towards setting myself up for success beyond boxing.
Most definitely. Well, you already know I've been wanting to have you on my podcast for a while. I've told you like twice already, and now it's actually happening. So thank you so much for taking the time and coming on. But I really wanted to take the time to get to know more about your story, and especially after you just got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Right. We kind of got to do a recap on the Shawn Porter's life.
Yeah.
So first, I just got to know we're like, whatever. We over the flappy here. What was your childhood like growing up, and what was that initial moment you stepping in the ring and deciding you wanted to go into the boxing gym?
Childhood was a lot of activity. There was 3 boys in the house, and we're stair steps. This year will be 37, 38, and 39. So we were always fighting each other. We were always having fun. We were always just goofing off, the 3 of us. And so it was always a lot of competition in the house as well. Football and boxing was pretty much what we were all about. And my dad took us to the gym. We were talking about that. Shout out to the Porterweight podcast. Go check out the episode I just did with my dad and the team. But we were talking about I was 4 years old, almost 5, when I had my very first sparring session.
4 years old?
Almost 5, yeah. It was this summer, so I hadn't turned 5 yet. I turned 5 in October. And boxing was always a part of my dad's life. Fighting was always a part of my dad's life. And the long story short that he told that I didn't actually know or understand. He had a fighter. When he was training us, we were 4, 5, and 6. He had another fighter that gone on to the Silver Gloves and lost a close decision at the National Silver Gloves. It's a big deal in amateur boxing. This kid's like 14 or 15 at the time. And when he comes home, all of the other coaches that were older than my dad and had more experienced than my dad. My dad was in his early 20s. They were all essentially trying to take the fighter from my dad.
What?
And so my dad went from fighting people and calling him, hey, man, well, you know, all this kind of stuff. And my dad basically said he gave up on it. You know, I can't keep fighting everybody for someone. And especially if I put hands on somebody and he gets mad at me, he's not going to want me to train him anyway. And looks at us and says, I'm going to start training them. No one can take my boys from me. You know, so I didn't even understand at 8 years old when we went and got our boxing books to start competing. I didn't understand what it meant. And then I did understand the first time I had my first fight. Though,
okay.
You know? I understood that. And I didn't really understand tournaments and stuff like that when we were 8 years old, 9 years old, traveling and things like that. 10 years old, of course, now I've seen it and I'm growing accustomed to it. I boxed and played football my whole life. I really didn't care to do much more than play football. Boxing was just what we did, and I liked winning, but football was like my life.
Were you already 4 years old playing football too?
I was 8 years old when I started playing.
So boxing did come first.
Yeah,
okay.
Boxing came first from that standpoint, but when it was time to compete, I was all for like football field. You know what I mean? Like I knew when football season was. I didn't understand boxing season, but I knew when football season was, and I always understood that. You know, we traveled and competed, and I won, and couldn't wait for football season. But I really started to appreciate boxing. I took my first trip and when I was 16, and we had a trip to go to Texas, the border of Brownsville, the border of America. And I didn't think we were going to be able to go. We don't got money. And I was like, well, how are we getting there? And my dad was like, USA Boxing is going to pay for it. And my jaw dropped. I'm like, what? And we got down there, won that tournament, and they kept us around for a camp. And then after the camp, we get to fight against other countries. And that to me was that was amazing. It was cool. I had already done that once the previous year, but I didn't understand it the same way that first year. So
you know, your brother's doing it too with you at this point.
At that point,
it
was just two of us doing it at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just two of us doing it at that point. So I win that tournament. I actually lose that invitational with the other countries. Shout out to Demetrius Andre. He beat me the first night, and he went on to win that tournament or whatever. I go home, and then they say we want to bring Shawn and the other winners from the nationals to a Junior Olympic World Tournament. Cadet, they call it the World Cadet Tournament. And there was supposed to be like 20, 30 other countries. I think like 10 or 12 other countries ended up showing up. And again, they flew me. And when I realized that they were paying for everything, I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I was like, this is going to pay the way for a lot of things I'm going to do in life. And, you know, kind of the long story short, my high school year of football didn't go that well. And I was like, I'm going to just box. And I never went to college. And just continue to box. Olympic team as an alternate, and then turned pro in 2008.
Well, what influenced you most, like in your childhood, to make you who you are today?
Ew. You know, funny you asked. When my acceptance speech, I had my mom and my dad come onto the stage.
Really?
Yeah, and because while I would never have picked up a boxing glove, I don't think there was anything that was gonna take me to a boxing ring except for my dad, you know? And my dad has given me so many life lessons and has taught me so much in and out of the ring. I know I wouldn't be on that stage without him. And then my mom, she told me when I was a kid, she said, God gives us all gifts, and you have to use these gifts to glorify him. And I've been like my whole life, what can I do and how can I glorify God, you know? And so I just felt like I wouldn't be where I was. I wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame if it wasn't for both of them. I was chasing God, doing everything that I was doing in the ring, out of the ring, so on and so forth. And then I was chasing being successful because my dad taught me how to set goals and, you know, be goal oriented and you know, and how to be consistent and all these other things, you know. My mom taught me patience, you know. And so I wouldn't be where I was without them, you know.
So is your support system, that was like a really big part of like helping you get there?
That's what I tell people now. You don't know this, but I have a certification to do life coaching. It's like counseling.
Life coach me.
The number one thing I tell people, you got to get a team. you are nothing without a team. And it doesn't mean people wearing the same shirts and the same, we're all banding together. But when something happens at work, you need to be able to go home and see someone at home that you can talk to. You need to be able to get on the phone or text somebody or say, hey, can we meet up real quick? I just need to get this off my chest. You need a support system.
We're created for a community. I always say that we need community.
There you go.
We need that. What would you say then for people who maybe can't find that in their family?
Yeah, you're not going to always find it in your family. My dad didn't find it in his family. My dad found it in believe it or not, he found it in his athletes. Wow. He found it in some of the mentors that he had, coming through the amateur circuit and things of that nature. Other people, because I know they're not as fortunate as me, I tell them, like, yo, you've got a teacher at school that's yearning for you to be successful. You just got to realize that teacher is there to help you. And if you humble yourself and go to that teacher and ask for some help, they're going to give you help, Sometimes it's the neighbor and, the kind of the list goes on. It's other friends at school or at work, and the list goes on. Help is there. You just gotta be willing to look for it. A lot of people aren't willing to look for it.
That's such a good point. I always say that to like younger people, like find your mentor, because it really is. It could be anybody. Like I've had people in my church, like you said, my neighbor, and that will pour into you, and they like want to help the next generation and like show them a way. So I feel like that's encouraging, because I know not everyone does have like that family support.
Even people within our circuit right here, I it's just who I am. Like, I offer advice. I try to encourage our peers in this space. I've encouraged my peers in the boxing space when I was in the ring. I still keep in touch with those guys and all of the amateurs. I said, yo, take my number. I don't want anything from you, but if you ever need anything, just holler. If I can do something for you, I'll do the best I can. Don't ever want anything from you. I just want to help. That's who I am,
Have you always been like that? Or has there been any moments that really...
I've always been like that.
You've always been a helper. You're born a helper.
Always been a helper. Always. Yep. Always been like that.
That's just in your core. I feel like God just does instill things in us.
Yeah.
100% with that. So then what was the turning point for you then of... You were already becoming successful in this in the amateurs, but to really take it all the way, which you have, like, what was the point when you really remember sitting there and, like, I guess seeing yourself as a world champion of, like, wait, maybe I could do this?
That's a great question. It was after my draw against Julio Diaz, and my dad and I, we were in a funny space at that point in time personally, but we were also in a space where we were about to make the move from Ohio to Las Vegas. Wow. And so I was in a really, really weird space. And we make the move out here, and I'm unhappy for a number of reasons. One of the main reasons was I didn't want to leave home. Didn't want to leave Cleveland. And I was jogging one day, and shout out to Lupe Fiasco. That's my guy, and I'm listening to Lupe Fiasco. And as I turn to go back down, instead of going back down, the skyline of Las Vegas caught my eye. And I stopped and I turned the music off, and I just stood there reflecting. I'm big. I've always been big on meditating. And I stood there and I'm meditating, and I just said, I was like, yo, you're where every fighter wants to be. You have access to the one thing that every fighter wants access to. You're right here, and you're fighting against it. Let's stop fighting against it. Like, you're made to be here. Go get it. And I remember, like, that run back was a happy run. You know what I mean? It was a happy run, and that was one of the turning points. There's been quite a few, but I think that was the main turning point that when I decided I'm going to become a champion because it's what I want to do, not because it's what my dad wants me to do or anybody else. It was all on me.
So there was a breakthrough in that moment.
Yeah.
Do you think it was hard leaving because that was your comfort zone? Of like Ohio, like leaving everything behind?
Yeah, amongst other things. Yeah, I didn't want to leave on account of that. We'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And what about once you get into the professional world? What, when you like look back on your journey, was the most rewarding moment? I'll
tell you what. I told this to the fighters at the gym that I'm training some kids at. My dad told me this when we were kids, and now it really makes sense because of the story he told the other day. He said when we were kids, and we weren't even, I think we had just started to fight. It was like before our first fight or whatever. We're going to a show, And myself and my brother, he tells us, if anybody walks up to you and tries to talk to you, you tell them talk to your dad. And that was like a rule. The rule was, if any coach, anybody ever tries to wrap your hands, if anybody tries to give you advice and anything, he said, tell them to talk to your dad. As we got older, he loosened up a little bit. He said, anybody tries to talk to you, you listen, you be respectful. If they say something you feel you need, you keep it. If they say something you feel you don't need, you just let it go. But those were the life lessons that my dad was giving to me before I was a teenager. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm telling you that whole story to tell you this. When we turned pro, and I mean, you turn pro and you're on a highway, and the cars are doing 80 miles an hour. The cars are doing 90 miles an hour. Now imagine being, 17, 18 years old, and you got to get on the highway and the speed limit ain't 50 or 55.
Now, wait a minute.
And you've got to merge into traffic doing 60 opposed to merging in doing 40, you know what I mean? And so the game is so fast. But the things that he said to me as a kid, they still were right there in front of me, and they resonated. They were right there. People were trying to, offer management and offer promotion and all these other things. And it was so simple. Just talk to my dad. And it was so simple for me to give everything to my dad and trust my dad, knowing that he was going to take over and handle things, and we were going to get there. And we got there. You know what I mean? The trust that he was telling me to have in him as a kid, once I was an adult, it was already there. And it was like, it never really had to look over my shoulder,
Sounds like you were pretty mature early. Like you had a good head on your shoulders young.
A little more mature than, but in other areas, not so much. Like to be honest with you, I had friends in college while I was a pro, still at home in Cleveland. Sure. So that was one of the issues, like you hanging out and I need you. And so I would hang out with them all night, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And then I'm eating, doing my thing. And then I would go do a run at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning before I would go see my dad so that my weight would be right. You know what I mean? So like I was immature in some areas, but in terms of mentally being able to ingest things and receive information and make it applicable to myself and things like that. Oh yeah. And my dad, that was how he raised us,
Sounds like your dad instilled like such great advice in you guys. What would you say was like the greatest life lesson he's taught you?
The greatest life lesson that my dad has taught me, without a doubt, boxing is just like life. And again, something that he was saying to me, and I didn't. It was a parable. Like what, but boxing literally is just like life. I can have anybody come on my podcast, and I already know their life. I already know their story. I already know their experiences. Because the comedians that come on my podcast, we share the same promotional stories. I had a trouble at this show, and and couldn't get tickets, and we share the same stories. The same thing with the rap industry. I'm like this with a lot of people in the rap industry because they resonate with me. They see themselves in me and the things that I've done. They see my struggle, and they know that it's the same. Boxing is just like life. I have transferable skills. The skills that I've taken from boxing, I've just transferred those to the camera, to my entrepreneurial endeavors, the suit line, all that kind of stuff. The same kind of hustle and mentality and commitment and drive, and the list goes on, all came from boxing. My dad taught me boxing is just like life, and he wasn't lying.
That's so true. That's really good. Yeah. And what would you say, like, I know in the midst of all this, it probably wasn't just like smooth sailing the whole time. No. Heck no. So what was that moment for you, I guess, in your career, even before, like maybe even in amateurs, that you considered maybe walking away, or maybe this wasn't for me? Or did you ever have any moments in your head?
I'm working on my documentary, and that's going to be in the doc. So what? I'm trying to figure out if I can give you one. I don't know if I can give you one. I can't. There's been some ups and some downs. Again, boxing is just like life. So we have some valleys. We have some ups and downs in life. And the funny thing with boxing is, you've got this professional life and you've got this personal life, and they have to parallel. And if they don't, and one goes down, it'll pull the other. You know what I mean? So
Dang, that's true.
the interesting part about that is that I've really had to manage that and make sure that they were always keeping one another afloat. You know what I mean?
Is that exhausting sometimes, or at that time was that hard?
You know, for me, honestly, and especially looking back on it, there in the moment, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But I can honestly say that God created me to be a very optimistic person and a very positive person, because some of the things that'll show up in my documentary, not very many people would have made it through. I'll tell you this much. When my documentary starts, it's going to start with a black screen, and it's going to be a quote from me. I should have never been a champion.
Wow.
I was that close to not boxing ever again once. Yeah.
Wow.
Before I became a champion for the first time. So
I can't wait for this documentary.
Yeah,
Is there a release day? Are you still working on it?
We're still working on it. We're still working on it. We were pushing to get it done by the end of this year. I don't know if we're on target for that right now, but I know whenever it happens.
Exactly. It will happen when it's supposed to.
It's supposed to, yeah.
Exactly.
Spring's my favorite time of the year, so maybe we'll wait till spring till next year.
Hey, exactly. Did you ever think you're going to have a documentary?
Absolutely not.
And what was the reason in starting that? Like, is there a message you want people to have?
So yeah. I'm talking to Andre Ward, and he asked me, "Yo, what are you trying to accomplish with your doc? What do you want to do?" And I was like, man, I just want to motivate people. I want to inspire people. I want people to look at my story, and I want it to encourage them that no matter what they go through, no matter what's going on, they can still make it through. And that's what I want to happen for my doc. And so I always thought that I was going to write a book. I still have a goal to write a self-help book.
Ooh, that'd be good.
But I thought I would be writing a biography. And when I sat down to start, formulating plans and ideas and things of that nature, I was like, I don't read.
Not me too.
Why would I expect people to read about me if I don't read? But I love movies, and I love film, and I love TV. I said, I gotta give people me, and so that's why it became a documentary, because I'm obviously seeing so many docs being produced in the last couple of years that I'm sure also helped me wrap my head around what a documentary even is, you know. But that was what it really was. I always thought that it would be a book about me. My dad is working on his book.
He is.
Yeah, and I'm trying to do some things with him in terms of a documentary as well. So we'll see. But that was really it. It was like, I don't read, so why would I expect people to read about me? Let me give people what I like, and I like film, so I'm gonna put it in the film.
And I'll probably resonate even more with him, like with you sharing it like that.
Yeah, we talked about doing some reenactments, myself and my producer. We talked about doing some reenactments, so we'll see what happens.
Is there any documentary you've seen over the years that you really loved?
The one that I really liked was the one with about the Chicago Bulls. I don't remember the name of it.
I've seen that one. It was good.
It was really good. Yeah. I don't really watch a lot of documentaries, but I did sit down. I recorded that one, sat down and watched every single bit of it. Heck of a soundtrack and everything. I mean, it was dope top to bottom.
When you're going through the planning of
and the one, I'm sorry, the one from Barry Sanders, that one too.
I haven't seen that one either. What is that on?
That one's on Amazon. That one's I think it's Run Barry Run.
Okay.
I think that's what that one might be. I think
love
it might be called
documentaries.
Run Barry Run.
That's my favorite.
Listen, this is a true story, and I told this to. I'll give you this one. I told this one to my producer. As soon as I finished watching it, I called my producer. I said, "Yo, I watched Run Barry Run. I think it's what it's called. I said, have you seen it?" He said, "No." I said, "This is all you need to know. When I watched him retire back in 1997, I didn't understand it, and it bothered me. He was my favorite running back. It bothered me. I didn't get it. How could he just? It doesn't make sense." And my dad said he did what he wanted to do. And at that point in time, when my dad said, I said, "That's how I'm gonna retire. I'm just gonna do it." And I didn't have in my mind to do it like Barry when I did it, but the way I did it was a lot like Barry. And I was like, it's crazy that way back in 1997, seeing that he was young, seeing that he was still healthy, seeing that he hadn't been injured and all these other things, and decided to just walk away because he knew that this was his time, this is what he wanted to do. Way back then, I said, that's what I'm going to do.
Uh-huh.
And it ended up being what I did.
Are you going to explain in the documentary more of like why you retired? Because I saw that with the Terrence Crawford fight. You were saying either way, if it was a draw, if it was a win, you already knew in your heart you were going to retire.
I mean, again, for the record, I retired before Run Barry Run came out. So for the record, but if you look at his story and you look at how I retired, and again, I just knew. I told my dad this. I thought that I was going to retire after I fought Errol Spence.
Oh, wow.
When Errol was making his come up. And I was like, all right, he cool. And I had heard about him in the amateurs because my dad had gone to a couple of countries with him. So I heard about him when he was in the amateurs. I didn't see his Olympic run, but I knew about his Olympic run and all that kind of stuff. I was like, yeah, he cool. And then people started making such a big fuss about this kid. I'm like, all right, let me take a look. And I took a look at him. I was like, this dude is good. And the more he started to fight, I was like, yo, he might be the best in the division. And people started saying that everybody's afraid to fight Errol, and I was like, I ain't afraid to fight him. I was like, what needs to happen? And it was like, it doesn't make sense to fight him right now. He doesn't have a championship belt. He hasn't done what you've done. The money won't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. So I said, all right. When they come to me and they ask me about fighting Errol, I'm gonna tell them, get a belt, and then we'll fight. We went to England when he fought Kell Brook, and when he dropped Kell, and by the way, I was rooting for him to beat Kell, not because I was rooting against Kell, but just wanted to see him be successful. Simple as that. And when he beat Kell and Kell didn't get up, I stood up, put my hands in my pocket. I said, there it is. And I just made up in my mind, he's the best fighter in the division. I'm gonna show that I'm better than him, and then I'm gonna sell off into the sunset. And then when I had the fight with him, and the fight went the way that it went. And, I'm sitting in my room just trying to figure out how do I present to my dad? Hey, that was it for me, And my spirit spoke to me and told me that there's something else. There's more. You got more.
We're not done yet.
And I was like, all right, well, then shit. Well, what is it? Because I'm ready to be done, And I looked around, and it was like, Terrence Crawford. It's got to be Terrence. And what really gives me, like, more peace than I already have, shout out to Shawns Path. He's one of the co-hosts on the podcast. He said the day after the fight, he hadn't seen like this kind of peace over me ever. He said, I've never seen, after your fight, I had never seen you at peace the way I did. He said, you lost the fight. The fight truly didn't go the way that you thought it would go. Your dad threw in the towel. He said all these things had happened, and then on top of that, you go in the room and retire. And on top of that, you have Terrence Crawford on the podcast the next day. And he said, man, I just looked at you. And he said, man, I saw the peace over you. And he said that at that point, it was like, why ask Shawn to fight again? He doesn't want to fight anymore, So, yeah, that's it.
How do you make hard decisions? Because you're kind of saying of like, I guess, was it when you said you felt like it was telling you you feel like that was like the Holy Spirit? Were you praying? Were you reading the Bible and the answer came to you?
I was not praying. I just was meditating. And that's honestly how God comes to me. God comes to me in my dreams, with no doubt. And God will come to me usually when it's quiet. And I'll just hear or I'll see. And if you don't believe this, this is how I prove it. After I fought Errol, my stock had risen, even though I had lost. People wanted to talk to me more than they wanted to talk to Errol. Most people thought that I won that fight. List goes on. Max Kellerman calls me personally. I want to get you on my show. The list goes on. My stock had risen after that fight. And if I retire at that point in time, I probably do this, and then eventually it goes like this, and maybe we already know that I was going to do TV and everything, but maybe it declines. Maybe. We don't know. But we do know that it would have done this, and if anything, it would have plateaued.
Yeah.
Maybe. Fight with Terrence Crawford. and my life has continued to do this. I personally promise you, I have not seen myself go like this yet.
Amen to that.
So,
but that's such a good point right there. Like shutting the door on the world and just being in that quiet space so you could really hear the answers. I feel like that's a big issue is so many of us don't do that. So we never even had that time to be spoken to.
Yeah. I pride myself on being patient. I've always been a very patient person. And, even at that point in time where I had been a couple of days of like, I had made up my mind that I was going to retire after I fought Errol. So I made up my mind that I was going to do that. But now I find myself trying to be patient to figure out how do I present this to my dad and how do I present this to the world and all that kind of stuff. And there was no go do it. And so it was like when my spirit isn't feeling that, I just like have to sit still. And once I sat still and I received that, I sat down in the post-fight press conference after I fought Terrence, and I truly, this is God's honest truth, I didn't sit there thinking, okay, when am I going to do it? When am I going to do it? When am I going to do it? I sat there proud about what had been done, also feeling like I got to explain some things because of how the fight ended with my dad and all that kind of stuff. But I sat there gracefully and patiently just answering and all those kinds of things. And somebody said, well, what's next? You fought everybody you fought. Are you going to move up? And it was like, here it is. It was just, that's how it was,
So effortlessly, it just like fell in. So when you're going through your documentary, like you're talking with your producers, you're planning it, does it feel like emotional for you, like reflecting on your life?
We've done my master interview, and we're going to do another master interview. And we interviewed for about like 3 hours or something like that.
Okay.
And I broke down a couple times, not very much, but a couple times, right? And when we're done, I said, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, that whole thing. He's like, you did good. He's like, that was good. He said, could have used more tears though. I was like, really? You want to go back at it? I'm acting. I can do it. But that first interview that we did was quite amazing. As I said, we have flirted with the idea of doing some reenactments of some really, really key moments and big moments in my career or whatever the case may be. But again, it's interesting. The documentary isn't gonna be produced and made to shine light on me. It's made to shine light on like the person that I am.
Yeah.
From a standpoint of, again, it's not to shed light on everything that I've done and these are the accolades and this is how many wins and all that kind of stuff. It's to shed light on this is what it was going on, and you guys never knew about it.
You only saw
as great as you saw, you never knew that he was going through this. You never knew that this were the challenges and these were the obstacles. And see him, this is how he got through it. Whatever you're going through in life, you can get through it. So that's really the purpose of the doc. And
you're showing that like through your life. I feel like that's a good message in itself.
Yeah.
And probably especially like for you guys, anyone who's putting their life in public eye, it really is like that. Like everyone only sees.
Even from that standpoint, and I've had that argument with my wife tons of times. Our personal life is not for the world. Just because the world has given us Instagram and Facebook and all these other X and all these other platforms, other people use them how they choose to use them.
Exactly.
I'm going to use the platform how I choose to use it.
Exactly. These
people don't eat dinner with us. These people don't wash up our kids. These people ain't making sure we get up in the morning. Why do they don't truly deserve to know when we have birthdays, when we celebrate things and what trips we go on and so on and so forth. And I told my business partner, I said, he said, SP, I learned from you. You don't post about where you go. I said, no. I said, people find out where I'm at on the night of the fight. They never know that I was there the whole week. I showed up I showed up in LA and you guys were like, you're here all week. I was like, where am I supposed to go? Yeah, I'm here all week. Where am I supposed to go? You know? But I don't tell people where I'm at, what I'm doing. That stuff is just not, and ain't how I live, because once you show them one thing, you got to show them everything. And you got to be consistent. Again, I'm consistent in everything that I do. So I consistently have shown you guys us having a PB and JJ French fry party. But y'all have never had Christmas with us. Y'all have never had 4th of July with us and all these other intimate, personal things. Other people can do it, but not me.
Yeah, like putting boundaries on certain things in your life completely. So, Shawn, what would you say really is like the key to your success? Because like hearing your story from you growing up and then the amateurs, your dad, and professional, and we haven't even gotten to the TV part yet, you guys, but you're just so successful in everything you're doing and have such a good head on your shoulder. How did that come about, or what really is that key component for people to take?
Usually I'm able to find the answer as the questions coming to me.
Wait.
I don't, like, there's so many words, and of course a lot of these words will sound cliche. You know, one of the words I've used today, consistency. I mean, like, it truly takes consistency to be successful. Patience. It takes patience to be successful. That's the one thing I tell most fighters. They ask me, what do I need to do to become a champion? I say, this a conversation that's a 3-day conversation. That is not a 3-minute conversation. I'm not going to tell you 1 or 2 or 3 things that's required and you're going to become a champion. But I will tell you that it's going to require patience. There's going to be moments where you think you deserve more and you're not going to get it. There's going to be moments where you think you deserve a fight and that fight's not going to be there right there when you want it. There's going to be moments where you're like, I'm ready to fight in February and the fight don't come till December. You're going to have to be patient. In order for you to get through this thing without getting injured and without making the wrong decision and, all these other things, patience.
Yep. Is it your faith that keeps you pushing forward and moving forward?
Absolutely. Yeah. My faith is that's pretty much what you wake up with and you go to sleep with, So the patience or the faith is like that's kind of like my being. My being is my faith, and from the faith, for James 2, count it all joy when you face trials, knowing that your faith is being tested, patience will prove itself, So.
Now that you're at this stage of your life, what would you really say you think is your purpose? Are you still kind of uncovering what that is?
I know my purpose. You guys know my purpose by now is to help people. And I think that while I've done a lot of great things already, there's some greater things that God has for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they actually like form. So, but the thing that I know that I'll be on my deathbed doing is helping. So.
Me too. I feel the same way. Did you know though? I guess at what point did you know your purpose, or was there ever a point you're walking around the world without one?
No. Well, I always knew my purpose, but I didn't understand. Like now my help is so intentional, but
good.
The help is always like I've always been someone that helps. I've always felt like winning and showing people that I could win, proving people wrong. I always felt like people were gonna pull some encouragement and courage from it and things of that nature. But now I'm just intentional with my purpose. Like it's like I was living in my purpose, and then it's like, oh, there it is, and it's like I was been doing that this whole time. It's like, all right, cool. So now let's make sure we're walking in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like that's so good for people to hear though too, because it's like we already all do have our purpose. You might just not know that you're already living it out yet, and it takes other experiences for you to maybe finally lock in that perspective. The moment. Yeah. I always love the moments.
And I always tell people like there's more than what's on the surface, So like for instance, the person that has the 9-to-5 and maybe for the most part tired of their job, and they're just yearning for so much more, and they're looking for so much more. Stop forcing it. Just sit down, be patient, and meditate, and allow the gifts that you've been blessed with, allow those to just sit right there in front of you and say, okay, well, I can do this, and where else can I do it? I'm doing it at work, but where else can I do it? You know, a lot of people try to force things. You know, you get a lot of people. I want to be my own boss. We're not all created to be our own boss.
Exactly.
And just because you see somebody else doing it doesn't mean you could do it. You know?
Exactly.
We're all not created to do podcasts. I picked up a long time ago that you ain't got no pad and no paper. No pen and no paper. I picked that up a long time ago. And I'm not judging anybody that does it with the notes, but you're prepared to do what you got to do.
Oh, that was a good thing. Okay, good.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Other people think that it's so easy seeing us do it, and then they'll get here and say, I should have wrote that down. Yeah, you should have wrote it down because that's probably not where God wants you to be. That's probably not your purpose, but because you see somebody else do it, you think it looks fun, you think it looks easy, and we just make it look good. We make it look easy. You know, you have to find what
works for you. Yep, and what's meant for you will not pass you by. When you was it your first loss or that really like taught you something great, or like, yeah, what was that moment like?
Man, I've had a lot of moments, but the draw against Julio Diaz, that was definitely one that really helped mold me into becoming who I am. We got the rematch against Julio Diaz, and in the rematch, I was like, this guy ain't gonna touch me, you know? And whereas in the first fight, it was like, I wasn't even sure I wanted to be in the ring that night. You know what I mean? So it was like definitely this turning of the mind and the body and the spirit and all those sorts of things. But the loss that I suffered against Kell Brook told me one thing: stop thinking that one thing is gonna work. You've got so many other things that you can do. When one thing doesn't work, make the adjustment, you know. And so that was one fight, man, where I just fought one style, one way for 12 rounds trying to knock out somebody. And when I didn't get that knockout, I didn't get the decision. And I knew it immediately. I knew it. I was like, yeah.
That was such a like essential part of you getting to where you are now. Like if you wouldn't have learned that you needed to adjust, that you need to pivot and just keep it.
It kind of opened up my mind, like to the possibilities of what I can do and who I was. Of course, the team as well. My dad was like, my dad felt like, wow, you didn't do what I told you to do. I still thought you won the fight, but he held you too much. And so we're not going to be held anymore. And so we started, you know, working on different techniques and things like that so that we wouldn't be held. But I think ultimately we both knew, you know, Shawn is so much better than he showed that night. If he doesn't clip somebody, we got to be ready for plan B, C, D, E, F, and G. And so from a mental standpoint, that fight really grew us both.
I love that. A little bit back to what we were just talking about with like callings and stuff. With you with TV, did you ever see that in your path? Or like, did you already know you were going to be good at that? So you felt that on your life too?
I knew I was going to do TV. I would watch boxing and I would listen to the commentators and I would be like, something didn't sound right. And I was like, talking about that guy, but they're not talking about that guy. You know what I mean? And so I was like, way back then, when I do it, I'm going to make sure I talk about both guys. I'm going to make both guys, you know, so on and so forth. So I always knew that I was going to do TV. The style of my presence and things like that, it really did. It came from working at Fox. They really helped mature me and get me out of the straight buttoned up presentation that I had. They said, loosen up and be yourself, you know? And I was like, oh, so have fun? they're like, have fun. And it's like, now I have to police myself so that I don't have too much fun. But I do believe that when you see us having fun on TV, when you hear us having fun on TV, it's infectious and you start having
It's so true.
So that's really like our job as commentators. Where our job is to make sure you're informed and entertained, you know?
Yeah.
And also that you know how this thing is playing itself out, you know. But my thing is, you gotta have fun. If you're not having fun,
exactly,
nobody will. But my first commentary gig was 2015.
Okay.
I came across some of the producers that produced that show way back in 2015, came across them earlier this year. And they said that when I was ringside doing it, I had never been trained. They gave me some hints before I went on TV, and thanked them for those hints, because those hints are still with me now.
Wow.
And I give that advice to other commentators coming up now as well. Don't forget, like, I help anybody. I want you to be better than me. You know what I mean? So I give everything that's been given to me. I give it. But I came across those producers. They said, you know, we're not surprised to see you where you're at. We were in the truck on the night that you were commentating on Spike TV, and we looked and said, this kid's gonna be good.
Wow, that just gave me the chills.
That was my first one, and they knew that I was gonna be good, you know. And I remember when I was done, I went back into my room, and I was like, I could not go. I was, oh my God, I knew that was gonna, you know what I mean? Fill me up. You know?
So you felt really good coming off of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So the whole, like, the moment you stepped in TV, then has it always, I guess, been a positive thing for you? Like, you never, I guess, finished filming one time and you're like, I could have done better. Rewatch yourself, like,
I grade myself. You know,
I could do that too.
You know, there have been some nights where I'll say something and then we're off, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you know, what are you doing? You know, and then I go home and it's like, man, if it wasn't for that one moment, we would have had a flawless night. I've had a couple of flawless nights, but. And by a couple, maybe 2 or 3.
That's such a good feeling, though.
Yeah, but for the most part, I'm always just trying to.
There's something critiquing.
Yeah, make sure that I say the right things the way that they need to be said. I've said some dumb stuff on air, and I'm like, I'm literally like, like the camera goes away, and I'm like,
no, literally.
Yeah, because I'm very hard on myself.
Me too.
Always trying to be a perfectionist and things of that nature. So, I was like, people next to me, like, what are you doing? I'm like, did you hear what I said? He said, yeah, I heard it. I was like, what do
you think about it?
Yeah. So, but for the most part, I knew that I'd be here. Yeah.
Do you have any funny TV stories, or when you say that, like, any embarrassing moment, like, you're like, I can't believe I just said that?
Yeah. Well, the most recent one was we were in LA with Kate Abdo, and
oh, she's great.
And they went to someone else who was interviewing Christina Milon, and I've always had a crush on Christina Milon. So they come back up to us, and Kate asked me something about Christina Milon, and I'm like, what? Like, I'm straight froze, and I was definitely mad at myself for freaking. It wasn't completely embarrassing, but it was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, no.
We were working the Fox studios, and I didn't really know much about the monitors and things of that nature. So I'm like, seeing Kate do her thing and experiencing Fox Studios and all that kind of stuff. So that was like the first for me. And so, like, now I'm like watching her read from the
teleprompter.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, okay. So you ain't just throwing this off the top of your head, and you got something right there you read from, huh? So I didn't understand all that kind of stuff. It looks so clean when they do it. ESPN, all that kind of stuff. It looks so clean. And so I'm sorry if I'm giving up some stuff right now, but it was eye-opening to me, right?
Yeah.
They wanted me to host a segment. They gave me the prompter, and I'm nervous because I feel like I'm sitting in Kate's seat. Kate's like, go get him. Like, she's hyped for me and everything. And I'm like, all right, I want to do as good a job as Kate.
Is this live?
No, it was recorded, which was the good part.
Good.
It was. So I put pressure on myself, and I'm nervous, and I'm not. And on top of that, I'm not used to experiencing being nervous.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like in my head, I'm like, get it together. You know what I mean? Like, like, get it together. What you doing? What's going on? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Nerves coming up. I'm like, get off me, man. What's going on? And they put the prompter up, and I'm like, on top of that, like, in my mind, I'm not a good reader. So I'm like, I put all this pressure on me, right? We went through it a couple times. And I'm with Caleb Plant too. And Caleb, like we cut. Now after you do a couple takes, now it's like really on your neck. You know what I mean? And Caleb's like, now Caleb's giving me advice. Caleb's like, yo, just, you know, because he can see the prompter too. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Finally, after like 4 or 5 takes, and like I'm just in my head.
So hardest.
I'm like looking at Kate, like I'm like thinking like she's looking at me like, yo, you're effing it up, dude. Like, and she probably wasn't even thinking that. Like,
it's crazy how we think that though.
So the producer comes over to, he's like, yo, loosen up. What's going on? I was like, man, I'm just messing it up. He's like, it's your first time, so what? He's like, loosen up. He says, the prompter, you don't need the prompter if you know what you want to say, we'll get rid of the prompter. I said, we can get rid of the prompter? You know? He said, yeah. He said, just be showtime. He's like, you got this, man. You know what you want to say and get going. And they came back to me without the prompter, and I'm like tiptoeing at the start. Then I start to walk, and then I start to run. And it was like
start flowing.
Yeah, I handled it. And then when that moment was over, and everybody made me feel comfortable about what had happened, what we had done, and all that kind of stuff, and everybody was encouraging me and all that, I went back to my room by myself. I looked in the mirror. I said, you ain't gonna never let that moment get to you again. I said, you just had it right there, and you're done with that now. You know what I mean? So I've had some really good moments on TV, and that was definitely one of the harder moments.
Yeah. That's never happened again. Does the teleprompter still scare you?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I think I'm ready for it now.
Wait, you haven't had it since that?
No!
Wait. Shawn, I didn't know that
If
part.
I work with anybody and they try to give me the reprompter, I'm going to tell them, no, I got it. So.
Oh my God. I know exactly what you mean, because that'd be happening to me too sometimes. The teleprompter is scary. Yeah. But then once like you see there's all these cameramen, all these people waiting on you, and you can't get it right, it's like.
I have studied Kate and watched her do what she does, right? So when I started doing TV, my thing was I want to be able to do everybody's job. When you play basketball, you need to know the point guard, the shooting guard, and the list goes on.
Yeah.
And so I've always like, where other people may look at it as pressure, I've always put that kind of responsibility on myself and everything. Like, that's my life. My life is putting the responsibility of everything and everyone on me. I don't want you to handle anything. I got it, you know? And so I said, you know what? Oh, there was another time. There was another time. And so my thing is, I've always been watching everybody want to do their jobs and all that kind of stuff. And the other time that happened was we were doing, I think it was Fury Wilder 3. I think it was Wilder Fury 3.
That's a big one, yeah.
And Kate had to go on stage. They left me and Dre at the desk. Oh, no. It's a true story, Dre. He left me. So Dre says, and I'll never forget what he said. He said, what's the generic language to take us to break? And I'm learning. So he said, yeah, what's the generic language to take us to break? So basically what he was asking, if Shawn gives his thing and I give my thing, how do I get us to break?
Like end it, yeah.
What do I say, right? And they said, oh, say, just anything, such and such, we'll be right back, something like that. Dre looked at me with this serious face. He said, you know what? I'm going to go first and then I'll let you take it. Just like that. He said, I'm going to go first and I'm going to let you take it. Just like that. And if you know Dre, I know Dre's face. Just like this. I'm going to go first and I'm going to let you take it. And instead of me saying anything like, no, anything like that, I said, I got it. I'm ready for this moment. You know what I mean?
Oh, shoot.
And so I start going over the generic language that they said. I'm going over it. And the producer clearly came in my ear and said, we don't have time. We're going off. So basically, we're not going to break. Don't take us to break. Take us off air. I heard him say that. I knew what he said. And Dre's doing his thing. And I'm like, and then I do my thing and we'll be right back.
Oh no! Oh no!
Oh yeah. And the producer says, "Oh shit! Oh shit!" And that's what I heard. "Oh shit! Oh shit!" and then it goes off, right? And I heard that. I said, "Did I do something wrong?" I knew I did. I said, "Did I do something wrong?" He said, "Ah, it's all right." I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, we weren't going to break. We're going off air for the day." And I knew that, but I froze in that moment too. And I was like, never again. I've gone to break since, and I've gone off since, and I've been chopping it like, just chopping it into pieces. You know what I mean? Yeah, I've been chopping it into pieces. But yeah, I froze in that moment too.
No, that makes me feel better though, because I'm like, okay, this happens to the best of us. Yeah. Like everybody has their moment. Well, Shawn, I've loved talking to you. This has been such a great conversation. No, you are
talking.
Yeah, no, you are not boring. You are very expressive. There's a reason why you're on TV, for sure. I have to know though, like with everything going on in your life right now, when you think of like the end of all this, like what do you want to be remembered by?
Oh, very simple. I want to be remembered as someone who was happy, someone who was always extending goodness, and someone who was just always selfless, I think that kind of sums me up. If someone were to describe me, of course, I would want the more generic words like he was fun, he was charismatic and things like that. But at the end of it, I do want people to just receive that I've just been here to help. I've always been positive and, always try to smile no matter what.
Love it. And any last message to send our viewers off with for them to take with them for the day?
Keep tuning in to the Rise Podcast.
Rise Up.
Rise Up. I'm sorry. Is it just Rise Up Podcast?
Yeah, it's Rise Up Podcast with Aaliyah Orozco.
Keep tuning in to Rise Up Podcast with Aaliyah Orozco. You're doing great. Thank you.
I really appreciate that, Shawn. What's next for you?
Wow, I'm everywhere. Listen, when it comes to boxing, and we'll end on this one, but when it comes to boxing, I'm just trying to be a positive advocate for the sport.
I love it.
I'm trying to put this sport in some spaces that it hasn't been in a very long time. And I, again, taking that responsibility. I don't, you can look at me and say, you're gonna play. I'm doing the best I can. So, you know what I mean? And that's what I'm trying to do with the podcast. The podcast is about getting it to, people that wouldn't typically watch the sport. So
casual viewers.
Yes, ma'am. So we got the Porterweight podcast and TV here and there and everywhere.
Everywhere.
Round one, I got a film that I've been working on. Trying to get the
Besides the documentary?
Trying to get the movie funded.
Oh my gosh, let's make that happen. Oh, I'm excited for all of this.
And the plan when we do the film, it is a boxing film. So the plan is to have all of the boxing media in the room. We're gonna do some press conferences in the film and stuff like that. So
Shawn, that's amazing. I'm so excited about that. I love everything you're creating. That's awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode and staying with us through the whole thing. I hope you took something from it today. I know I sure did. And stay tuned for my next episode. Bye, everyone.